Good evening. I am calling to order the meeting of the City of Wilsonville Budget Committee for May 9th, 2024. It's 6:02 p.m. And I will start by asking the city recorder to call the roll. Yes.
Julie Fitzgerald.
Here.
Kristen Ackervall. Joanne Linville.
Here.
Caroline Berry.
Here.
Katie Dunwell.
Katie Dunwell is excused for a family health emergency.
Thank you. Alicia Moulton. Here. Cynthia Russell.
Here.
Tabby Troffbearer. Is she available online? Okay. Tyler Beach.
Here.
And Christopher Moore.
Here.
Thank you.
And we do have two members who are planning to attend by Zoom. Kristen Ackervall has an overlapping obligation that's, I think, going to conclude pretty soon. And we expect Tabby, maybe somebody could text her to see if the connections are working. Okay. So I would like to start by asking all of the citizen members to take a couple minutes and give a self-introduction and also include when you began your tenure on the budget committee, because we have some new and some continuing. And then after that, I will ask the city council members to also introduce themselves, and then we will ask the city attorney to conduct the election of the chair. So we'll start alphabetically with Tyler Beach.
All right, what do you want to know?
Well, just a little bio, please.
Lived in Wilsonville since 2016. I have a 6-year-old who goes to Lowry, plays t-ball. I'm a lawyer, mostly criminal defense out in Hillsborough. I have a wife who's a nurse who works way harder than I do. That's about it. Just got a new puppy.
Okay.
So.
And this is your first year on the budget committee. Thank you. And we'll go to Christopher Moore.
Hi, Chris Moore. I've lived in Wilsonville since 2005 with my wife and 4 kids. Although we had a 5-year break where I did a year and a half in Shanghai, China for my job. And the job then took me to West Palm Beach, Florida. But then my wife informed me that she and the kids were moving back to Wilsonville, asked me if I was joining, and I said, yes, I'll come with you. So we've been here since 2019. Professionally, I was on the budget committee when I lived in Wilsonville before, between 2008 and 2012. And I'm just new to this budget committee, just was appointed. Professionally, I'm a lawyer. I work for big companies, GE, Carrier, HVAC, most recently Otis Elevator. But mostly nowadays, I'm shuttling my children around this town like an Uber driver, but making terrible tips.
Okay. Thank you. Alicia Moulton.
Hi, I'm Alicia Moulton. I moved to Wilsonville 3 years ago. This is my 3rd year on the budget committee. I live here with my husband and my 6-year-old daughter, who's a 1st grader at Beckman Creek. I live in the Morgan Farm neighborhood, which is on a little island surrounded by construction right now. And I am the finance director for Knight Cancer Institute at Oregon Health and Science University.
Thank you. And Cynthia Russell.
Hi, I am Cynthia. I joined the budget committee in 2023, but I technically had a brief stint when I was filling someone else's role who left in 2022. I was introduced to all of this through Wilsonville's Civics Academy. That was really enlightening and got to learn more about the city. And I work for the Oregon Secretary of State as a financial auditor, and this seems to work really well with that.
Thank you. And so now I'm Julie Fitzgerald, Mayor, and I'll go to...
Mayor, did you want Tabby?
Oh, she's on. Yes, Tabby, hello. Sorry, I didn't realize you'd come on. If you'd like to give your bio as you just heard. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tabby Trauber. I've been in Wilsonville for going on 3 years. I have 3 littles under 8 years old, and I'm at home because unfortunately the bug hit our house. So I'm the treasurer on our HOA, and I'm also a local realtor.
And this is your first year on the Budget Committee, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I will now go to Councilor Linville, or Budget Committee Member Linville, excuse me.
I'm Joanne Linville. I was appointed to the City Council in September of 2019, and I will be finishing an elected 4-year term December of this year. My background is higher education. My kids are all grown. My grandchildren are older than your littles. So I have a wonderful grandson who's just going to be 21 years old in June, and my 2 girls live here in the Sherwood and Portland area, and my background is in higher education.
Thank you. Carolyn Berry.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet the new people on board. So I joined the City Council last year, so I completed 1 year, and I'm starting my 2nd year. My background's urban planning, but back when we had the recession in 2009 or 2010, I switched careers, and now I'm an insurance agent, which I really enjoy. We moved to Wilsonville so that my youngest daughter could go to high school here, and I ended up staying. I really enjoy it. And I'm 2nd year doing the budget, and I love the Budget Committee because you get to learn so much about the city and the city operations and all the different departments. So I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you. And I did have a question about our view on the screen here. Can we see all of the members who are on Zoom? Are we able to do that? Or is it just when they're speaking?
I'm not a technology.
Okay. Okay, and do we know if Councilor Ackerval is on yet? Not yet. And so I forgot to give my introduction. I'm Julie Fitzgerald. I have a background raising sheep. We did have to count them, so that gave me some background here. No, I am an animal science and science graduate from Oregon State University and segued into the field of nonprofit fundraising. And after 43 years in local nonprofits, I just retired from that career in December of 2023. And I was elected to the City Council on November 6, 2012, for a 4-year term that began in January 2013. There was a position open because a person had a very bad family tragedy, and they had decided to appoint somebody to fill the remaining days of that 2012. So I filled those 43 days. And then after the 4-year term, I decided not to run again. Had a lot of travel to do with work, and so I didn't run then. Had 4 years away, and then I ran for mayor in 2020 and was elected, and this is my last year in that term, which ends in December. And so this is going to be my 4th budget season. I always learn a lot. So if we let us know when Councilor Ackerval comes in, whoever is able to see that on the Zoom call will introduce her. With that, I'd like to ask the city attorney to begin the election process.
Mayor, I don't think we've done a motion to approve the order of agenda yet. So let's do that first.
I guess 8 years isn't enough experience. Could I have a motion to approve the order of agenda from any member of the Budget Committee, please?
I move to approve the order of the budget.
Agenda.
Sorry.
Is there a second? Motion's been moved by Member Berry and seconded by Member Moulton. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 9-0. Or 8-0. Excuse me,
Just a
Counsel.
clarification for the
Yeah.
record. How are we able to hear Member Trabar as far as voting? Do we need just maybe a
Yeah.
longer pause for her
Yeah.
to chime in?
Because I don't, she was visible, I don't see her now.
I asked to bring it back, but she has not.
Maybe she got disconnected. So I'm going,
There she is.
okay. Were you able to, could you unmute yourself, please, or Tabby, or at least just offer your vote on the agenda, please?
Yes,
Thank you. So that is, the motion passes 8-0. Now I will ask the city attorney to begin the election.
Thank you, Mayor. The Budget Committee will elect a chair subject to the following rules. We will begin with nominations for the position of the chair of the Budget Committee. Any member of the committee can nominate someone for chair. You can also nominate yourself. Nominations do not have to be seconded. If you are nominated by another person and want to be considered, state that you accept the nomination. If you do not want the position, state that you decline the nomination. When the nominations stop, I will call for any more nominations, and when no further nominations are forthcoming, I will declare the nominations closed. Once the nominations are closed, I will read the names of the nominees, and then I will ask Ms. Pinyard to conduct a roll call vote. Please state the name of the person you wish to vote for. I will announce the outcome of the vote. If one person receives a majority vote, I will declare the result of the vote. If no one receives a majority of the vote, we will redo the ballot until one person receives a majority of the vote. No nominee may be dropped unless that person voluntarily withdraws from consideration. So with that, we will now open for nominations of chair of the Budget Committee.
I would like to nominate Member Russell to chair the committee.
I accept the nomination.
Any other nominations? Okay, I'm not hearing resounding additional nominees. All right, with that, we will declare the nominations closed, and I will ask Ms. Pinyard to do a roll call vote. And the only nominee is Member Russell.
Member Beach,
I'll vote for Member Russell.
Member Traber,
Member Russell.
Member Moulton,
Member Russell.
Member Barry,
Member Russell.
Member Linville,
Yes.
Member Fitzgerald,
Aye.
and Member Russell.
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote. Oh, excuse me.
Agreed? Yeah, more.
Member Moore, I apologize. Now it is. Thank you. I apologize.
So Member Russell has been elected chair, and if you look at your script, the script is ready for you on item 1.3.
Okay, I now ask for a motion to approve the minutes of May 17th and 18th, 2023, City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meetings.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 17 and 18, 2023, City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meetings.
I'll second it.
The motion to approve the May 17th and 18th, 2023, City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meeting minutes has been made by Councilmember
Member
Linville and seconded by Councilmember Barry. Any discussion?
I've read the minutes, and I think they look like an accurate representation.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The meeting minutes have been approved.
By a vote of 8-0.
Okay, I call to order the Wilsonville Budget Committee public hearing on the proposed uses of state shared revenues as reflected in the City of Wilsonville's fiscal year 24-25 budget at 6:17. This public hearing is to comply with ORS 221.770. Holding the hearing is required in order for the city to participate in the distribution of state shared revenue. Oh, thank you.
Just in case we get out of control.
Do I need to do this now?
Yeah, after you open it,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Budget Committee will be taking public testimony tonight at the public hearing. The hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Staff will present their report. Next, the Budget Committee will hear public testimony regarding the proposed use of state shared revenue. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. A timed buzzer will go off when the 3 minutes are up. After all community members who wish to speak have testified, staff will have time to provide any additional comments to the committee. Information regarding how the public could attend this meeting, give testimony is posted at City Hall and was also timely published in the Wilsonville Spokesman. It is also posted on the city's website, shown on the screen. Notice was given that testimony could be submitted for the record in advance in writing by emailing or mailing it to the city recorder. If you are listening to this meeting remotely, when the time for public testimony is called, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your telephone if you would like to testify. If you prefer and have not already done so, you may also submit written testimony by email at any time before the public hearing is closed by emailing the city recorder at the email address now being shown on the screen. Is that on the screen?
I don't see that on the screen, but do you have an email that is being monitored right now? Okay, they can email Guile, Guile, at ci.wilsonville.or.us. That's my email.
Okay. Any testimony sent by email will be read into the record. Please include your name and mailing address with your email testimony. If you're having difficulties with these instructions, you may call the number shown on the screen and enter webinar ID number shown on the screen when prompted. When called up to testify, state your full name and address for the record. I request from those providing testimony not to repeat testimony that has already been given to the Budget Committee. Simply indicating you agree with the prior testimony given by a speaker you identify is sufficient. We will begin with the staff presentation of the state shared revenue.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm Catherine Smith, the city's Assistant Finance Director. Before you is a public hearing surrounding state shared revenues. ORS 221.760 establishes eligibility for the city to receive state shared revenues if the city provides 4 or more of the following services: police, fire, planning, street construction, maintenance and lighting, sewer, storm, or utility services. The city provides all but fire, meeting eligibility. These are the revenues collected by the state and dispersed based on population to municipalities. State shared revenues anticipated and budgeted for fiscal year 2024-25 include most notably gas tax, budgeted at just over $2.2 million. This is our single largest state shared revenue source. The next 3 are general fund revenues, liquor tax in the amount of $450,000, state revenue sharing in the amount of $400,000, and cigarette tax in the amount of $20,000. Next, ORS 221.770 establishes the process for the city to elect distributions of these funds, including enacting resolution and by holding a public hearing, allowing for public comment. And that concludes our presentation.
Do any Budget Committee members have any questions for staff at this time?
I just had one comment. Would you mind, Catherine, moving the mic a little closer so it's a little louder, please? Thanks.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who have signed up to testify regarding the state shared revenue?
We did have one remote, but I do not see them online.
Okay. I just move forward? Okay. Does staff have any further presentation or comments before the public hearing is closed? Okay. Seeing no further requests to testify, the public hearing on the proposed uses of state shared revenues as reflected in the City of Wilsonville's fiscal year 24-25 budget is now closed at 6:22. Okay, I call to order the Wilsonville Budget Committee public hearing on the City of Wilsonville's fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget at 6:22. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Budget Committee will be taking public testimony tonight at the public hearing. The hearing will be conducted in the following manner. As a courtesy, members of the public have the option to provide public testimony on the proposed budget before the staff presentations begin. In order to accommodate those citizens who do not want to wait until the presentations have been made to speak, community members may elect to wait to testify until after the staff presentations have been completed. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. A timed buzzer will go off when the 3 minutes are up. Staff will present their report. Additional public testimony will be allowed regarding the proposed fiscal year budget for community members who elected to wait to testify. And then after all community members who wish to speak have testified, staff will have time to provide any additional comments to the committee. Information regarding how the public could attend this meeting, give testimony is posted at City Hall and was also timely published in the Wilsonville Spokesman and is also posted on the city's website shown on the screen, which I think is also not on the screen.
Right. We'll need your email.
I don't know the web address actually for this. I can pull it up though, Keith. Let me see. It looks like it is ci.wilsonville.or.us/bc-bc/page/budget-committee-4.
Thank you. Notice was given that testimony could be submitted for the record in advance in writing by emailing or mailing it to the city recorder. If you're listening to this meeting remotely, when the time for public testimony is called, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your telephone if you would like to testify. If you prefer and have not already done so, you may also submit written testimony by email at any time before the public hearing is closed by emailing the city recorder at
GUILE, that's Guile, at ci.wilsonville.or.us.
Thank you. Any testimony sent by email will be read into the record. Please include your name and mailing address with your email testimony. If you're having difficulties with these instructions, you may call the number shown on the screen and enter webinar ID number shown on the screen when prompted. When called up to testify, state your full name and address for the record. I request from those providing testimony not to repeat testimony that has already been given to the Budget Committee. Simply indicating you agree with prior testimony given by a speaker you identify is sufficient. Is there anyone wishing to testify at this time? Okay.
Chair Russell, I just want to note for the record that Member Ackerwall has joined us via Zoom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no further requests to testify, the city manager will kick off the budget presentation with the budget message followed by staff presentations.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Budget Committee. Specifically would like to say hello to our new Budget Committee members that I haven't met yet. So welcome to Tyler, Christopher, and Tabby. We're happy to have you here. We've closed the blinds to divert your attention from what you're missing outside. But you did get a free lunch or dinner, I guess, so there's trade-offs. Hope you all had a chance to read the budget message. I'm not going to go into depth on it, but I do want to highlight some of the major issues confronting the city, generally speaking, and this year's proposed budget specifically. If this year's budget was a traffic light, it would be yellow. The major cost drivers for the city are personnel, utilities, insurance, contracted services, and materials and services, all of which have gone up significantly in the last 18 months. I'm sure everyone sitting in this room understands that as your householding costs have increased as well, the city's no different. Cost increases in private sector payroll, materials and services is a particular concern when it comes to capital improvements. Wilsonville has a long history of making strategic investments in road, water, sewer, stormwater, parks, and facilities. The current environment requires a more cautious approach to making key investments when the value of the dollar does not stretch nearly as far as it used to. While this is a challenging environment in which to operate, the city is fortunate to be in a great financial position to maintain operations and sustain current program levels for all of our retail departments. Ongoing capital work includes the water treatment plant expansion, West Side Reservoir, and the Beckman Bridge, some of which you are living through that construction, and I apologize. All of these are expected to positively impact economic development and expand the tax base. The Beckman Bridge project will facilitate residential development in Frog Pond East and South, as well as improving safety and connectivity for all modes of travel in this part of our city, including the new primary school that will be opening in Frog Pond West in the near future. Aside from those ongoing capital projects, there are no new major capital projects included in this year's budget. One key issue going forward for the city, however, is how to fund infrastructure improvements. Infrastructure in the short term doesn't fund itself. In the long term, it does by contributing positively to the tax base. There are some key planning initiatives included in this budget related to the Basalt Creek employment area that will place the city on solid footing where employment lands are concerned. We are currently seeing the fruit of past planning efforts and key infrastructure investments in the Coffee Creek employment area. Recently, myself, the mayor, and our economic development manager, Matt Lorenzen, attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the new corporate headquarters for Precision Countertops. This is a Wilsonville-based business with over 200 employees that chose to invest in Coffee Creek and maintain their operations in Wilsonville. This is a great example of Wilsonville putting together a great plan and backing that plan up with infrastructure investments to keep a thriving, quality business in our community. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the budget message before I hand it over to Keith and Catherine.
Very well. And we'll entertain, oh, I'm sorry. We did have a question?
Well, I was just thinking that as we go through the various discussions and the meetings, I imagine there will be opportunities for you for the team to express where they have made decisions relative to the conditions you just described.
It will be all over this budget.
Okay.
Yes, and I'd like to also add that if things come up as you're reviewing the budget at home, the best and most efficient way is for you to email it to either Keith or myself, and we'll take your questions, we'll answer them in detail, and then we'll make sure everybody on the budget committee can see the question and the response. So phone call or email is fine. Thank you, Mayor.
And we're back here on May 15th. So I'm Keith Katko, I'm the city's finance director, and with me tonight is Catherine Smith, whom you have already met, who did the state shared revenue public hearing. But as we go into the budget now, I just want to kind of touch base on what Brian touched on there with the budget message. The budget message really is the best way to understand the budget. The budget document, 400 pages. The budget message distills that down into roughly 15 pages. It's really the Cliff Notes version. The city has got a diverse operations, numerous funding streams, and numerous expense types. So, and I think the budget message really does a great job of distilling that down into a digestible way to understand the budget. The other point I just want to make about the budget, it's a policy document, it's a financial plan, and it's really an attempt to capture the future all the while we're having a very dynamic present. So the first thing about that is we start with a budgeted beginning fund balance, which is our estimated ending fund balance of June 30th, 2024. Obviously, we haven't finished the year, so we take a stab at where we're thinking we're going to end this current year, and that's our budgeted beginning fund balance. So it's a little bit of a moving target there. The other thing to say is we were making changes to the budget up to really the distribution of the budget 2 or 3 weeks ago. We got we made it into the budget. The budget includes the $500,000 grant we received from Clackamas County for supportive housing initiatives, and it also includes a $550,000 federal grant that we received for the construction or rehabilitation of the Memorial Park playground. So just kind of to let you know there's just constant things coming up and those are the two most recent things that made it into the budget. And the other thing we were kind of at the mercy at with our budget is delivery dates of particularly capital items. We expense things based on accounting rules on the date of delivery, which is sometimes hard to align to our budget framework. So kind of just a couple things to keep in mind. And as Brian mentioned, you can stop us anywhere along the line here and we can answer questions. We also have the directors coming up to answer questions about their individual departments. Just to start off, 2 points on kind of a preface here. This is our financial structure of the city. We do fund accounting here. I think many of you are aware of what that is. It's basically an accounting methodology focusing on accountability. So we have 24 funds, 11 operating funds over here on the left of your screen. That's the general fund. I've listed them in the main funding mechanism of that fund. We corral these in separate funds so we can track them and make sure we are accountable and transparent for each one of those types of funding streams down the line. The general fund, the property tax, community development fund is funded by fees and permits. Building inspection fund, that's for all the inspections in the community housing that get corralled back into that fund to make sure they're used appropriately within that fund. Same with transit. Road operating is the gas tax. Road maintenance, fleet, the water, sewer, operating, street come from your utility bills. They get put in those operating funds to ensure that they are spent appropriately. So the operating funds also can fund the capital funds, which are the middle funds there. Those funds typically don't have their own funding sources, so they're relying either on the operating funds or SDC funds to make things happen. So we particularly also want to make sure we're tracking our SDC, which is our system development for new development, to make sure those funds are isolated and they are transferred into the capital funds or operating funds as needed for those capital projects. So we're talking about 24 funds.
Can we just pause for a second because some of our new members may not be up on all the acronyms. I mean, you did say system development charges. Those are the fees that developers pay to the city, basically to buy into the system, and they can be used mostly to expand the city. So they're paying for their share of the impact that their particular project is having on the city.
And one other point just on this slide, when we're looking at the Community Development Fund, that's our engineering department, our planning department, and they are project managing a lot of the large projects within the city here. So to the extent that we'll have a water CIP, like the expansion of the water treatment plant, water SDCs may fund that project, as well as water operating fund may fund that project. And the CD fund is reimbursed based on the time that our engineering department tracks their time, the planning department tracks their time, and assesses a project management fee on those projects, and that will get cycled back into the community development fund. So it's kind of a circular kind of a funding stream. The other thing to keep in mind when we're talking about the budget tonight, we're going to speak about this comprehensively. The city has a $257.8 million budget. It's got an operating budget of 61.9, a CIP budget of 60.4 million, and the interfund activity that I kind of spoke of is 69.3 million, and the ending fund balance is 61.3 to make up that $257 million budget. And then, although we do speak of it comprehensively, every fund has its own budget. So it's those 24 budgets summing up to that $257 million budget. And the legal level of control when we're approving this budget is at the departments. We're going to have all the department heads come up and articulate their budgets, and that's the operating budget for those funds. The capital budget is separate, and that's separately approved. That will be, Zach will come up and talk about the capital budget. Debt service, transfers, and contingencies are all appropriation levels that have specific legal levels of controls around them. So although we're talking about expending, budgeting the $257 million, it's really locked down by fund and then within those categories. One our final comment is the budget really is part of a 5-year forecast. The forecast is in the back of the book, and it's something to take a look at as well. So I'm going to go over the budgeted resources to get to that $257 million and the expenses, just to kind of highlight some of the changes from last year and maybe articulate what's in that. And it kind of correspondingly ties to page 23 in your budget document if you care to reference it. Starts off with property tax. We're going to have a 9% increase in our property tax up to $12 million. The city has a permanent rate of 2.52. What's new is the state or the municipalities in every taxing jurisdiction really is limited by a 3% assessed value. Your property taxes can only go up by 3%. Luckily in Wilsonville, we're blessed by a certain amount of development. So that's when we're projecting out our property tax receipts next year, we add a little bit of 2% to that. And we're also going to benefit a little bit from the closure of the West Side Urban Renewal District. So that closure results in the $1.6 million that had been assessed last year. We stopped collecting that increment, and it gets distributed out to the overlapping taxing districts, including the city's portion, which is about 20%. So we'll see a bump of at least $320,000 from not collecting any more increment and closing that district down. That's our property tax. And other taxes the city receives, which gets consolidated in that line, are we collect about $6.2 million in transit tax, which is a tax on employers in the city for the funding of the transit department. The city also collects a hotel transient tax at a 5% rate, and that gets put into the general fund. And of course, the gas tax is part of this other taxes, and that's about $2.2 million. That's collected from the 40 cents per gallon that the state collects, and it's allocated back to the city based on our population. What's new? It's basically trending as expected, 4%. The transit taxes, will go up every year because wages in the community are increasing and there's new jobs and economic growth in the city. So we're expecting about a 4% on other taxes. License and permits and fees. These are the franchise and right-of-way the city receives from companies that are using our right-of-way. We also have business license fees that we collect. It's down as we're not projecting as robust of a development in the community next year. It's actually on our May 15th budget meeting. We'll have Chris Namsu in the community development talk a little bit about our forecasted development, what lays ahead for the next year, what they're anticipating. Development is really hard to predict, but Chris has a certain beat on it, and he'll be able to articulate that a little bit better on our next budget meeting. Intergovernmental, this corrals around all our federal funding. It was higher last year because a lot of times these are just one-time revenues. Last year we had a $1.4 million grant from Metro for the Frog Pond land purchase. What's also included in here last year's budget, which is the one we're right in, we had significant funding from the city of Sherwood for the expansion of the water treatment plant. We're not going to have that because the project is winding up. So our intergovernmental revenue looks like it drops about 33%. These are just one-time funds.
I'm just going to add a little color to that the land in the Frog Pond area is for the park. The park that's being developed there.
Yeah, we're lucky we got that grant from Metro. What does include in fiscal year 24, we have about $3.3 million that we receive in the general fund. Of course, we get that $1.7 million for the library district every year, or an approximate amount. Also included, as I kind of mentioned early on, we got a supportive housing initiative grant from the county. It's $500,000, but it goes over 2 years, so about half of it has been budgeted for next year. We put all the state shared revenues are classified in this intergovernmental category. And we have a nutrition program that's run at the community center that's federally funded, so that is part of intergovernmental grants as well. Transit fund every year, or the transit department in general, is the beneficiary of voluminous amounts of federal grants. We'll get about 3.7 million that we're anticipating, and that's really for capital buses. We are getting a little bit more for the water treat expansion as that project wraps up. That money's coming from Sherwood because they're contributing 33% to the expansion of the water treatment plant. And then also mentioned we got in that Memorial Playground grant. We got notification of confirmation that we have $550,000 federal grant funding for that project. And there's a potential for additional matching by the state too, which will be really nice to come. We don't know yet on that one. That kind of makes up the bulk of the intergovernmental revenue. Charges for service. Yeah.
Do we, excuse me, do we get our opioid settlement money annually in a payment? And is that come in another intergovernmental agreement? Is that included in that?
That would, I think, it's, we get it intermittently, basically. Like, we'll get a check of $20,000 from Walmart, roughly, you know, or from another large pharmaceutical company that comes in. It's budgeted, the revenue's budgeted, but we didn't budget any expense on it because I don't think we have a plan of how to spend it yet.
Working on one.
Right. I'm wondering about showing the revenue that we have, and where would we show it? Because I think we're getting state, we have to report on it. So
Yeah.
we're getting state opioid settlement money that's coming directly from the state, as well as any of the other drug companies.
To the extent, I mean, budgeting revenue, you certainly have to budget expense. Revenue, we don't have it, I don't think, budgeted specifically revenue source. We've collected about $50,000, I think, so far. And like I mentioned, we haven't budgeted the expenditure side of it yet until we get it in there.
If we decide that we do have a program or some service we want to spend that money on, it wouldn't be hard to make that adjustment in a supplemental, correct?
Right, correct.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal that it's not in the budget document because we can do a supplemental, and we do several of those a year.
Yeah, once we get a plan on it.
Yeah. So we don't need to show how much money we have on hand.
We don't, not necessarily on hand, it's just in the fund balance, and we didn't budget additional revenue just because we don't really know. I mean,
Can't predict.
It can't predict it. At least I don't have a trending understanding of it. It comes in intermittently, maybe a $5,000 check that we receive from some pharmaceutical company.
But it is all quarantined to a specific.
Yeah, we're holding on to it. It's reserved. Yeah, because we can't spend it on anything other than what we get approved to spend it on. So, but we've collected about 50,000, maybe 55.
So just to recap, once a plan is developed on how to spend it, which is a project in and of itself, that would be presented for discussion, and then it would have to be approved.
Councilor Linville would bring that to council and say, we've met with our community partners, and here's how we'd like to divvy that money up. We would bring a staff report to council, along with the supplemental budget that would allow for the expenditure of those funds.
And it would account for what we have on receipt.
Yeah, we wouldn't approve anything more than what we have on hand.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
About the gas tax. Are we in one of the counties that has their own additional tax? And do we get a part of that?
Yeah, both, I believe. Clackamas County, we get, it's a vehicle, you're talking about the vehicle registration? Are you talking about the vehicle registration fee or additional gas tax?
Additional gas.
We don't have our own gas tax, but we do receive funding through the vehicle registration fees.
Okay.
And that's Clackamas County.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't share any other gas tax at the county levels.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was confusing that with the vehicle registration one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a question? You talk about the property tax revenues coming in, and they've gone up quite a bit for this next proposed budget cycle. they had gone up, I think, even more than that for the prior one.
Yeah.
But then it sounded like you said you expect it to slow down precipitously?
Yeah, because in the prior year,
Yeah, talk about the,
we've been closing down we closed down the year 2000 urban renewal district the year before, so we saw a bump up on that.
Okay.
But, now that they're closed, we're back to the mercy of the 3% assessed value increase in the city, as well as any kind of development. And one thing just to note about development in general, as those new houses come on the tax rolls in Frog Pond, they don't come on at market value. They're coming on at about 50% of market value. It's called this property change ratio of how properties get assessed in the county, and they look at the whole county wide and they do this average assessed value, and then they divide it by the average real market value in the whole county, and that rate, because the average real market value is just skyrocketing, that's the denominator of that formula. So it used to be around 60%, but now it's really dropped down to 52%. They take 52% of the real market value, and that's what it's assessed at. But the city is growing, and so we are lucky in that respect.
so that those big jumps were more to the closing of the urban renewal. It wasn't all the building that we see going around.
Well, that's part of it.
We've had some 7-8% increases related to new growth.
Okay.
So it depends on, the level of single-family residential. Also, new commercial and industrial helps a lot as well, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd have to go through every year, and Dan Carlson, our building official, has a lot of permit stuff that he'll share that is historical that will be of interest to the committee, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and like I say, Chris will be able to articulate what he foresees coming online too. And that'll be our next budget meeting.
Thank you.
I appreciate the question on the urban renewal, because it's not something everybody walks around talking about.
Yeah.
And since we're on the subject, would you mind, Keith, just doing a quick description of what the division of tax revenue is, how that works, and then when it stops, it's redistributed?
I bet you I could give a quicker one.
It's either one. It's a contest.
When you create an urban renewal district, the assessor, basically you draw a boundary. So let's say the west side, they drew a boundary. The assessor comes out and they say, here's your frozen base value. Here's the value of the district the day it was formed. So the overlapping taxing bodies all get to collect what they were collecting before, but the new growth in value comes back to the urban renewal district to carry out the plan and program that's identified in your plan. And at the end of that life of that urban renewal district, there's a major increase in value of the district, but all the growth goes to the district until it's closed, and then it's redistributed out. So some of the things that we've done as a city that are kind of unique to Wilsonville, prior to some new changes, we used to remove land from the district to give money back to the overlapping taxing districts. And then I think they didn't allow that anymore.
Right.
So then we had to start doing like under levying. So we didn't levy the full amount so that we could show to our taxing district partners that we wanted them to enjoy the fruits of the investments we were making. So we've been very conscientious about that. So that's kind of 30,000 foot level of urban renewal and how we've used it here.
And if I could ask if you could email out one of my favorite flyers, which is the two-sided flyer on the West Side plan, which is closing June 30th, and the two-sided plan on the year 2000 plan, because it describes that really well.
Yeah, and we have one additional public hearing, that'll be the urban renewal budget on our May 15th, so we'll have Matt Lorenz in here as well to maybe give a little.
It might be good to have Matt give a presentation on the two districts we've closed, at least for our newer members, and maybe some of our not so new members, maybe you want to do a little deeper dive on urban renewal. I think it's beneficial to get that information out.
Yeah, it's like what Brian said, it's the taxes paid on the increased property values because of that urban renewal district. And the division of taxes, that phrase, that's really kind of there's the conceptual overview of what urban renewal is, and then there's this administrative process that the county assessor does, and that's called the division of taxes, where they reduce the permanent rates. We'll have Matt Lorenzen come
more
in
later.
and talk about that.
was
I don't want to get sidetracked here. I got to get the city budget going on.
When she said a quick explanation,
Yeah.
renewal is brain numbing.
But I think it might be a really good idea to have those
Flyers.
flyers
Yeah.
available to the whole budget.
Yeah, we'll shoot them out, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that in our urban renewal budget next week. So, but for now, back to the city. One of the largest revenue generators for the city are the charges for services. Those are, of course, all the utility fees, your water, sewer, storm, street light fees. It's roughly about $24 million we receive in there. We have about 77,200 customers. We process 87,000 bills a year. And in that large 27 million, we also we sell raw water to the city of Sherwood, and we get about $1.5 million from the city of Sherwood within that large number there. What's new, the two variables for utility services are population growth and weather. Weather can really fluctuate. If we have a hot spring, we're going to see an uptick in water revenue for the city, and vice versa if it's wet. So it kind of can fluctuate. SDCs are those system development charges that we talked about earlier and Brian mentioned. That's all regulated under the Oregon Revised Statutes. There's the statute if anybody's particularly interested in it. There's two components of it. This is the fees that get charged for people coming into the city, so that the existing residents aren't paying for new development. There's a buy-in kind of to the city, which every municipality has. They are indexed to an inflation rate, and that's tied to what's called the engineering news record. So every year they are tied to that for indexed for inflation. And SDC revenue is down, and it's linked through development to the extent that we aren't seen as a robust development next year. So our system development charge fees are coming in under, and as I mentioned, we'll have Chris up here next week and talk a little bit more about the future. One of the big bright spots, of course, is investment revenue, because interest rates have just taken off. They're about a U.S. Treasury. We're limited to an 18-month U.S. Treasury here at the city. They're about 5.2%. So our investment returns are significantly up. The city has an investment portfolio of about $166 million. We can invest about $59 million of that with the state, and the rest of that we invest privately with mainly U.S. Treasuries or AAA corporate debt. And we're limited by the 18-month term, but we are seeing some significant increases in there. Interfund activity is, as displayed here, that is, again, that's the general fund transfers in. The general fund, of course, houses admin, HR, finance, legal, and IS, and all those other funds, the water department, the sewer department, utilize those services, so there is an assessment that reimburses the overhead for those services provided to those other funds, the water fund, for example. In the interfund activity is also the transfers in for project management fees from those capital projects. And then it also is in this consolidated number, it's the CIP transfers in for all the CIP funding from the SDCs and the operating funds. All that movement is really moving the city money internally around, is captured in this category called interfund activity. That's how we get to a balance of 257 million in resources, and that 114 million, that is an estimation of where we're going to end in this current fiscal year on June 30th, 24. Again, I kind of mentioned it's a moving ship here, and we take a stab at really analyzing the finances of each fund to come up to that total, and more than likely we'll do a little bit better than that. So more than likely we'll be starting in a little bit better position than where we budgeted. We always try to budget a little more conservatively on revenue. So our budgeted resources are going to meet our budgeted requirements. So we're switching here to, these are the expense categories that the city has. Personnel services is our employees, we have an increase of 4.26 FTEs to a total of 197.01 FTEs. The additions are listed there. There's in finance, there's a 1.0 for a janitor position. There's a half parks seasonal maintenance specialist. In the summer, we hire temporary seasonal employees to help assist with the park maintenance, and we have the library intern, which is foundation funded, and we also have an increase in the librarian youth service librarian. Roads and stormwater are splitting an FTE ad for services provided in that realm, and the transit fund has an additional bus driver for a potential Clackamas Town Center route that is anticipated. Materials and services, again, we're talking, collectively here. The city contracts out, three of the biggest items we contracted out are the water treatment plant, the sewer treatment plant, and of course our police force. That makes up about 49% of that materials and services, up overall 6% citywide. As Brian mentioned, there's a lot of pulls on that with our insurance rates going up, utilities going up over the past year. Just like everybody's household income, we suffer or endure the same cost increases. Materials, in particular, construction materials are really getting more expensive. Capital outlay here, these are those one-time items over $5,000, like our buses and any kind of equipment. And so most of that is in transit and they are grant funded typically for our buses. Public Works has a 1.8 million, and they're listed here as the increases there, including a 1.5 million for the building repair and equipment of the water treatment plant. Fleet, that includes some fleet replacement vehicles. We replace vehicles in our city fleet on a rotating basis after a period of typically 10 years. And there's also a little bit of a vehicle equipment purchase, and that I believe is for the new janitor position for that $20,000 truck there. And that gets to our total operating budget. The total operating budget for the city is 61.9. That's the number, when people ask what does it cost to run the city, that's what we typically say. It's 61.9. We also have a vibrant capital improvement program, and we'll have Zach Weigel here, the city engineer, coming up shortly to talk about what that $60 million CIP budget is. And over there to the right on the screen, it kind of breaks it out. That's capturing water projects, sewer projects, road projects, stormwater facilities, and parks. It's significantly dropped from the prior year. Part of that is due to the completion of the Public Works facility is off, and the water treatment plant expansion project is winding down. So the capital improvement projects budget is winding down. Debt, the city has 3 outstanding external debt issuances. We have the we have a wastewater treatment plant bond out from the original 2011 upgrade to the plant, and that is at a rate of 1.43%. We have a water treatment plant expansion bond that was taken out in 22 of $6.8 million, and then the Public Works complex has a bond of $14.5 million that is we're servicing the debt on. As well as we have an interfund loan from the general fund to the stormwater, which wraps up this next year, the last year of the debt service on that. So our interfund, that's going to equal the transfer in revenue that we showed on the resources page. This is showing the expenditures, so that they're basically equal. Budget, this is just the formula is the estimated beginning, it's the estimated beginning fund balance, net all these expenses to get to our ending fund balance budgeted. And that which gets us to our total resources equaling our total requirements. that was kind of a very quick overview, but there's so much packed in there. And again, it's all kind of captured in that budget message. So certainly if you have any questions, you can let me know, or you can email me on these things. It's kind of a high-level overview. And like I mentioned, over the next, for this meeting and the next meeting, we'll have our department directors come up and talk about anything specific to their departments. If there's no questions on that, we can go to our capital improvement budget, and I'll have Zach Weigel come on up. While he's coming up, these are the larger non-recurring projects that have a useful life of greater than 1 year. Our CIP budget is $65.9 million, and that's the capital project expense, plus those project management fees, plus there's a little bit of a general fund overhead that gets charged to the projects too for paying the bills and dealing with any kind of general fund services that they need. How that's broken out on resources is paid when I was showing that structure of the funds. Operating funds are picking up 47% of the CIP budget this year. SDC funds are contributing 37%. Urban renewal picking up 3%. We do have some grants in there. And that's how we get to the funding of that 65.9. One quick other slide before I turn it over to Zach. We have 113 projects budgeted. Really, the top 5 projects are consume about 58% of that CIP budget, and that is the West Side Level B Reservoir project in our water, the Beckman Dip Bridge continuing on, I-5 pedestrian bridge, as well as Beckman Road street improvements, and a smart yard expansion. And I'll turn it over to Zach now, who can go into much more detail about all of these projects.
All right, thank you, Keith. Again, my name is Zach Weigel, city engineer, and good evening, Chair Russell and members of the Budget Committee. I'm not going to go through every single one of those 113 projects, but I'll just touch on the kind of the ones that are more significant. First, you want to start out with how do these projects get on this list, and we have some annual repair and replacement projects like our street maintenance program and our utility pipe replacement program. That's just an annual projects that get placed on the CIP. We also have changes that occur in regulatory requirements. So sometimes we'll add projects that address those regulatory changes. And then, but the main way we get projects on the capital plan are through our utility master plans and our transportation system master plan, our transportation system plan. So those are looking at projects that are needed to support growth of the city. So expansion or extension of utilities and roadways. And then also, as the Public Works Department does their annual maintenance and inspection of facilities and generate a list of deficiencies, one of the components of the master plans are to address those utilities that are kind of becoming obsolete or reaching their useful life and need replacement. So those projects also get put on the list. And then every 2 years, the city council does goal setting, and a lot of times those goals will lead to additional capital projects that are needed to be funded. So many of you have probably seen these quarter maps that we provide every year that break the city up into 4 quadrants that show all the projects that we have planned. We'll start with, so the boundaries are I-5 separates the west and the east, and if you took Barber Street in front of the transit center and extended it all the way through the city, that would separate the north from the south. So we'll start here in the northwest quadrant, so west of I-5, north of Barber Street, kind of in the industrial area on 95th. And we'll just start at the top and work our way down So Washington County has a project to extend the Basalt Creek Parkway, and as part of that project, we need a water line to serve that future Basalt Creek industrial area. So we have a project in there to pay for that design as they move forward with their project. The next project is that Basalt Creek Parkway, Basalt Creek planning area. That's to do for the planning department to start doing zoning, writing code, development code, doing some infrastructure analysis to get that Basalt Creek industrial area ready for development. Continuing down, we have you'll see on this a number of locations where it says pedestrian improvement projects. Those are crosswalk enhancement projects where we're putting in those flashing beacons and doing some enhancements. You can see there's one planned for 95th across from the Department of Administrative Services building, and they're contributing money for installation of that new crosswalk and flashing beacon. Kind of the major project on this image is the Willamette Water Supply Pipeline project. I'm sure if you've driven down 95th, you've experienced the construction. So there's a budget proposed for community development staff to coordinate with the Willamette Water Supply. We also have consultant inspection helping to make sure that what they build is compliant with city standards as they restore city infrastructure after the pipeline is installed. Going down the list, we have the Public Works facility. As Keith said, that project is wrapping up, but some of that work is continuing into next fiscal year. So there's a little bit of budget in to wrap that project up. We also have the transit-oriented development, which is the new affordable housing plan for the Smart Central Transit Center area. That's for community development staff to help manage that project through completion. That is scheduled to break ground here this summer. And there's also a grant, I believe, that is incorporated into the budget that helps pay for that project. And then Keith mentioned that one of the bigger projects is the SMART expansion and expanding their fleet parking area and adding a bus wash. And then if you look all the way to the west, another one of our major projects for next year is the West Side Level B Reservoir, so expanding the city's ability to store treated water. And that project is actually out for construction bids right now, so starting construction in a couple of months, so budget for that. Next slide. Okay, so we're jumping over I-5 to the northeast quadrant now. So east of I-5, north of Barber Street. You can see there's another pedestrian enhancement project planned at that Burns Way, kind of near the Costco entrance on Parkway Center Drive. Another flashing beacon crosswalk. And then you'll see kind of sprinkled throughout the city are these priority 1B water improvement projects. These are fire flow improvement projects. They're small water line projects. They're all designed and ready to be constructed next year. One of the other bigger projects that's actually being managed by Clackamas County that the city is participating in is the Stafford 65th Ellerson Roundabout. So we have an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County to contribute $1 million to that project. Also some staff time for coordination in the design and construction of that project. So starting design in about July, and construction is scheduled to begin in 2025.
Say, Zach, could we pause for a minute on that one, just as an example? So I see on page 211 is a description of the Stafford 65th Ellerson Roundabout. It happens to have a picture on that page of a nearby project, the Beckman Dip, or from the other side. But even so, here we see that the project total for Wilsonville is $1,085,000. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then just to describe the scope of that and our collaboration, that whole project, I know you might not have it memorized, but maybe you do.
I do not have it memorized, but I can get that number.
But it's much bigger than
Yeah.
that. That's just our contribution. And didn't it come from vehicle registration fees partly?
Yes. Yeah. It's a combination of vehicle registration fees and Clackamas County system development charges.
Okay.
And then the city is using transportation system development charges.
Just because we've spent so many years talking about that, I wanted to give it a little highlight. And it's very exciting that it's fully funded, but it will take a long time.
Yeah, their plan is, I do have the schedule right here. Construction starting, fall of 2027, completion in spring of 2028,
So you're at the beginning of that, folks. Takes forever.
But the good news is, like you said, it's fully funded.
And this is it's not in Wilsonville, it's in Clackamas County.
That's right.
Thank you for indulging that.
All right, so continuing down, this is a very active area around the Frog Pond development, as you can see. So we have the Beckman Creek Trail Phase 2, which is, there's a subdivision that's going to be starting construction here soon called Frog Pond Terrace. And as part of that project, they are going to be extending that Beckman Creek Trail. And it's a kind of a smaller subdivision, so the city is contributing Parks SDCs to help make that project feasible. So you mentioned the Frog Pond West Neighborhood Park. The city is currently in design of that project right now and expected to start construction next fiscal year beginning in January. And then the plan is for it to be open before the primary school is open in September of 25. And then, as Keith mentioned, one of the biggest projects the city has ever undertaken is the Beckman Road Corridor Project. It's really 5 capital improvement projects that include water, storm, sewer, a roundabout, a bridge, roadway improvements. That project, as you are probably all aware, is well under construction. It started here in January, and it's going to continue through the end of 2025, with the road work in front of the school being completed before the school opens. The bridge will take a few months longer, but continuing that work, and you'll find that in the budget this year. And then related to that project, yeah.
That one of the things that I think you didn't mention on that project, which I think is important too, is the habitat restoration for the creek.
Yeah. So
and the fish run.
Yeah, we'll be doing the stream restoration as part of that project underneath the bridge. Related to that project is that Beckman Creek flow mitigation, which may seem strange looking at the map because it's not even close to that area. But as part of the stream restoration, we have to mitigate flows that were directed there back to the way they used to go historically. So there's a project in the Ash Creek area to do some flow mitigation. So that's what that blue dot you see kind of on the west side of the page.
I don't see it pointed on the map, but I know it's in the budget here for the Canyon Creek roundabout. When is that slated?
Yeah, so the Canyon Creek Beckman Road roundabout is part of that Beckman Creek corridor project. It's one of those five projects. It's actually just started construction this in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
have one more question. So I love these maps where it's showing the location of each project. Are those maps in this budget, or can I get a copy?
So the maps are, we can definitely get you a copy. The maps are in a little bit different format in the budget. I don't know if Keith, if you want to.
Well, we can PDF the PowerPoint too and send it. Yeah.
And then if you go onto the city's website, there's a link to all projects, including all private development projects that have a map of the city where you can see all the projects in one place. It does get a little busy, but.
Sorry, one more thing, Zach.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, on page 210, capital improvement project 4212 is the Beckman Dip Bridge, which you said is a significant project. And just to circle back to something we can talk about again later, that is a significant project. And as you can see on the list of funding sources, it is 3 sources. The year 2000 urban renewal plan, so you'll see that listed when you get that flyer as one of the beneficiaries of that year 2000 plan, which closed this year. So it's no longer collecting tax increment financing, but the money was collected from that and it's being used for this. And then the Frog Pond infrastructure fee and the road capital improvement project. That's just one of the ways that urban renewal and these other things show up. Thanks.
If you want to go to the next slide. All right, so we'll move down to the south of Barber Street, now east of I-5. So you can see Town Center implementation. So there's a number of strategies in the Town Center master plan to help with implementation, and we've been continuing to work on those items since the master plan was adopted. That will continue into next year. You can see that there's a police seismic rehab project on there. That project is really to support a grant application. So having a grant writer help with that, getting some grants to seismically retrofit the police station. And then if you look at going further down, Beckman Creek Interceptor, that's upsizing a sewer line that runs along Beckman Creek, and included with that is a trail and a maintenance access. So that would run from Memorial Park all the way up to Frog Pond subdivision, or Frog Pond area, and tie into the trail system that has been constructed with those neighborhoods. That project's in design right now and will continue into design and environmental permitting next year, and construction starting in 2026. Going down to a Memorial Park, Parks has a project to replace and expand some of the field lighting, and then also to replace the playground that Keith mentioned earlier that we got the grant for. We just adopted the stormwater master plan, and one of the projects in there was to install a rain gauge and flow monitor on Beckman Creek. And so we included that project, kind of advanced that project because it could really help ground truth our stormwater model, and could lead to saving quite a bit of money on capital projects if we're able to show that there's not as much flooding that we had anticipated in some of those areas. So advancing that rain gauge and flow monitoring project. If you head south into Charbonneau, you can see we have a lift station project. All the sewage that comes from Charbonneau goes to that lift station, and it pumps it across the Boom Bridge and down into the treatment plant for treatment. That lift station is quite old and was in need of rehabilitation. That project has been under construction this year and will continue into next year. It should be wrapping up here this fall. With one exception, the new generator has a long lead time, so that will come about a year later. Anything with electrical components like that, transformers, generators, they have a very long lead time right now. So, and then you can see we have the Charbonneau Well House. It's kind of a historic structure that's on French Prairie Road, and it's needing some rehabilitation. It's a wood structure that's got some dry rot and needs some improvement. That work, I believe, is underway and is just going to be wrapping up a little bit into the summer. So a little bit of budget to cover next fiscal year. And then French Prairie Road pathway, there's a pathway that runs along the outside of French Prairie Road from kind of on the west side of the road. And that pathway is quite deteriorated. And this is a study to kind of figure out what to do with that pathway, replace it, look at other alternatives, and then do some outreach with the Charbonneau community on what's the best path forward, so we can get some real good cost estimates on what to do with that pathway. Next slide. All right, finally, we're now west of I-5, south of Barber Street, and this is where we have a lot of those fire flow projects that I was talking about. There's 3 more on this slide, so helping to improve fire flow with these small water line projects. One of the last project in the West Side Urban Renewal District is the Brown Road Improvements Project, so filling in sidewalks, adding bike facilities, street lighting, improving Brown Road between Camelot, Evergreen intersection all the way to Wilsonville Road. That work, we have requests for proposals out right now for design consultants, and we'll be starting design this summer on that project.
And former Councilor Leham would like me to let you know that it includes undergrounding of existing utilities.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
How could I forget?
I had to do that for her.
Good, thank you for bringing that up. And I just met some people, coincidentally, just out for a walk, who were having a picnic at Tranquil Park, and 3 of them arrived, as the way they travel, in their wheelchairs, and they often have a picnic there. And so they were really glad to hear that this project is going to start. So it's used by a lot of not only pedestrians, but I mean adults walking and moving around, but it's a nice walk to school, very well used connection there. And so that also is going to take a while, but we're excited that it's starting and that the money came from the West Side Urban Renewal, which you said closes on which date? June 30th.
Yeah, we stopped the increment. Yeah.
But it kicked out a couple $1 million that you see in that budget to use for that project. Yeah. Thanks.
So going down towards the Willamette River.
6.
We have what the project that Keith mentioned, the water treatment plant expansion. That project is wrapping up. The majority of that project will be done this fall. And similar to the Charbonneau lift station, the transformer and the generator are going to be about another year before that work can be completed. And then we have the Boones Ferry Park Master Plan implementation. The Parks Department has a little bit of budget for next year to kind of clear the area where the old playground used to be and prep that for a future arboretum that's called for in the master plan. And then finally, I forgot about the I-5 pedestrian bridge. How could I forget about that? So we have that's a bridge crossing I-5. Also Boones Ferry Road and Town Center Loop West, connecting Barber Street and the Smart West Transit Center to the Wilsonville Town Center. We just applied for a federal grant through the RAISE program, and we'll be hearing if we get that money here in June, by the end of June. So.
The amount of that grant?
Yeah, the grant request was $22 million. So we have the city's match requirement budgeted in the next year's budget.
is that money going to be used for design or design build?
So the city received a regional flexible funds grant from Metro, in 2020 or 2016, I believe. And so design work has been completed on that project. And we're acquiring the last few easements on the west side right now. And so it is construction ready. So that money will be used for construction. So the last project I'll mention is the wastewater treatment plant ultraviolet disinfection system. That was one of those projects in the master plan that was just adopted that identified that as something that's becoming obsolete and ending its useful life and needing replaced, and then it just went out. So we advanced that project. It's actually already in design, and we will continue design of that project next year and will be constructed the following year. So those are the main capital improvement projects. I think we have another slide that has kind of the master planning work that's coming up. I've mentioned a few of these already, so I'll just touch on a few of them. We are working on the climate action plan. We just are negotiating a contract with a consultant this week. So that work is advancing and will continue into next fiscal year. We're going to start the water distribution system master plan. It's been about 10, 11 years since that plan has been updated, and be continuing that work into next year. The Public Works Department is looking at replacing the meter reading with an automatic electronic system because of the rates increase that they've been experiencing. So they're going to be studying that next year, and there's some budget included for that. With the wastewater treatment plant master plan and the stormwater master plan documents adopted this year, we'll be taking those capital improvement project lists and doing a new utility rate analysis and system development charge fee analysis, and that we are negotiating contract with a consultant right now, and that work is going to kick off here in about a month, and it'll take about 9 months to complete that. And just one other thing, the Parks Department is going to be developing some playground development standards to make sure all the playgrounds are being designed to the same requirements across the city. So with that, that's some of the projects. There's a lot more. I didn't put all these projects in the capital improvement plan, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have about them.
I have two questions. First, the Memorial Park playground, which playground is getting replaced, the lower one or the upper one?
I believe it's the lower one, yeah.
And the second question, and this is just, I haven't filled out my ballot yet, so I know there's something on the ballot regarding the town center plan. How does that impact the budget for this next year, if at all, depending on whether it passes or doesn't?
You can answer that.
And I don't have to get political on that, but just like, I don't know, how does it impact what we're doing here today, if at all?
Staff has to be careful when Staff has to be careful when there's a measure on the street.
Yeah.
We can't lobby one way or the other. But the underpinning of the town center plan is heavily reliant on urban renewal. So, but I don't think for the next budget year it would matter at all.
It doesn't impact what we're doing here for this next year?
No.
Okay.
And
It
takes a while for that increment to build up to do anything significant anyway. So you're probably looking 5-7 years out before you, if it passed,
Yeah.
before you could do anything major anyway, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, we wouldn't budget for money that we don't have, so. All right.
Okay, with that, I think we can go, we're going to start our department presentations, and up first, I think we have Delora Kerber, Public Works Director, to talk about our Public Works Department.
Good evening, budget members. I'm Delora Kerber, Public Works Director. All right, so as you can see listed up there on the screen are all the various divisions within Public Works. Is there? Okay, there we go.
We'll have to click as you say.
And so Public Works operates and maintains the city's infrastructure. We're responsible for public health and safety. Administration provides leadership and support services to all the various divisions within the department. And we take care of various planning, construction, remodeling of several different city facilities. Here you can see is our completed Public Works complex, which we are very excited about. And along with that, we're doing some interim improvements to the old City Hall building that was Public Works and Police building. Now it's just going to be the police building in the interim until we move forward with Community Service Block Master Plan, which is a master plan that is looking at the future home of both the police department as well as a new community center. Also, we do, as part of Public Works Administration, is we do asset management in that we inventory and track what kind of work is done on the various infrastructures that we have. And then also with the Public Works Administration, we are in charge of the emergency management. So we educate and prepare staff as well as make sure that we have the appropriate documents, pursue grants as appropriate. And then we are also going to be having our third annual community preparedness event coming up in fall of 2024. Stay tuned for that one.
Might be a good opportunity to invite our citizen members to your ribbon cutting.
Okay, it was going to be later, but I will invite them twice.
I wasn't sure if you had it on the agenda.
No, I haven't.
Glossed over that new facility.
And so for the Public Works Complex, we are going to have a grand opening for the community to come and hear a few words from our mayor and do a ribbon cutting, as well as being able for people to do self-guided tours around our facility. And that is on May 18th, starting at 11 a.m. We'll run to 2 p.m. So I hope you can join us.
We'll follow up with an email.
Yes. All right. So as I mentioned, emergency management, we take care of the various documents. We are actually in the process of updating our natural hazard mitigation that is back to Federal Emergency Management Administration for review, and then we'll be bringing that forth for that. We are also working on a workplace safety and emergency response guide to help for our employees, that if something were to happen, that they would have a handy guide right next to their phone, that they would be able to look things up as to who to contact. All right. Next, there we go. All right, so one of the divisions is facilities, and in facilities, we take care of over 250,000 square feet of public buildings and structures, along with the 2 interactive water features. Parks takes care of the top side, and facilities takes care of all the mechanisms that are happening below to make sure that the water is circulating and it's safe. We do in-house janitorial services, which has really given us a lot of flexibility and efficiency. And as we have grown, that's one of the areas that we are requesting a 1 FTE additional janitor and a small van for that person to be able to help accommodate additional requests, responses to emergencies, and then have backfill for workloads. All right. Roads. So for roads, we take care of roadside maintenance, graffiti removal, which seemed to, had it's quite a bit recently, as well as being able to do some pavement repair, sign repairs and replacements. We do striping, pavement marking, and then with the expansion of the city, as we're growing, as we're building new capital projects and adding new roadways, we are looking to increase by a 0.6 FTE. So we're taking a 1 person and splitting them between roads and stormwater, not literally, just figuratively, and that we would be able to help us with our asphalt repairs and our other road maintenance duties. Street lights is the next one. We are now in the process of our Phase 3 of the street light conversion. You can see Phase 1 and 2 is complete. 3, we expect to be done by the end of this year. And in this year's budget, we are asking for funds so we can complete Phase 4, which would wrap up all the rest of the lights within the city. So that'll be very exciting. We've already are seeing a nice return on investment for the conversions from the old high-pressure sodiums to the LED lights. Okay, so water treatment and distribution. So one of the things is our responsibility for providing reliable and safe drinking water. We need to comply with the Oregon Health Authority regulation for drinking water program. We have a cross-connect or a backflow program, which helps prevent any water from backing up into our system that we don't want. We are required to do daily testing, weekly, monthly, annually, and special. And in fact, you've heard about the PFAS in the news. So as one of the requirements for us for the unregulated contaminant monitoring, or UCMR, and number 5 is we will be doing some testing of the raw water as well as finished water for PFAS coming up this fall.
Which is, what is that acronym?
Oh, yeah, I knew you'd ask me
It's basically
that.
the forever chemical.
That's what someone just asked me about that when I was buying a cup of coffee, so. But we are testing for that.
Yes, we are. Yes, that's a requirement that the federal government every so often comes up with various requirements because they're trying to get a feel for what's in the system. And so that's the one that is currently of interest, and we are scheduled to test for that this December.
Is that different than the plastics that we're finding in the water?
Yes, it is. That's a different one.
And are we testing for plastics?
We are not.
Do we plan to test for plastics?
If we are requested to do it, yes.
Requested by who?
The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. The challenge is we could test, but then the question is, what are we testing for? To what limit are we testing? That's where we rely on the EPA to narrow down what it is that you're looking for and to what level you are looking for.
I'm going to butcher this, but I can tell you what PFAS is. Perfluorockery and polyfluoroalkyl. Alkyl?
I don't know. That's why I call it PFAS.
There's probably a reason why they call it forever chemicals, and that's why.
Right.
I'm not a chemist.
So as part of this is, we're clear up to wastewater. I wasn't done with water.
Oh, no.
Thank you. So we have the Willamette River Water Treatment Plant, in which, last year we had produced over 2 billion gallons of water. So that's a lot of water. And so we partner with Veolia Water. They are our third-party operator. They operate and maintain it. However, the city does own that particular facility. And with distribution is, in addition to the unregulated contaminant monitoring, EPA also is requesting us mandating would be a better one, us to do a lead service line inventory, which is going to every place between the main and the meter and the meter and the building and determine what kind of material is that pipe. And so what we're looking for is that pipe have any lead in it. And so currently we are in the phase of, we have done a records analysis, and based on that statistical evaluation, we will now be digging holes at 300 meter boxes to determine what is the material on either side of the meter. So, and that's due by October of this year. And so that's one of the things we are requesting, a small vacuum truck to help us with that work. So, all right, now I'm ready for wastewater. Okay, wastewater. So this is, one of the areas of our environmental stewardship. We are required to comply with the DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, and the requirements of our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, or NPDES permit. Again, we do a lot of testing daily, weekly, annually, monthly. With this, we have 9 lift stations in the city, and so one of the things that we do, and you can see a picture of it, is we're doing some closed-circuit TV analysis of our sewer pipes to help us get a better sense of what condition that they are in. And so as was mentioned earlier, that's one of the ways that some of these projects get onto our CIP list. For the wastewater treatment plant, we partner with Jacobs, and they are the ones that operate and maintain our wastewater treatment plant. So whereas on one side, we're developing over 2 billion gallons of water, on this side, we are treating like 850 million gallons of water that are coming through our treatment plant. So. And then here we have the trifecta of the water. And the last one is the stormwater. And so here we have also another NPDES permit, or a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, but they call it a 404. And that's kind of how they distinguish. This has to do with stormwater. We also use the CCTV, or the closed circuit TV, in order for us to do an analysis of the condition of the stormwater pipes. And to help ensure to keep gunk, as you see, out of the stormwater system, we do street sweeping. We sweep all the streets in the city at least once a month. So, and then we also encourage people to join us with the Adopt a Road program. We have over 40 sections along various arterials that we look to volunteers to help us remove the litter and debris from those areas so they don't get into the stormwater system. And then this is the other one where we are looking for the 0.4 FTE to complement the roads. So the one person would be split between roads and stormwater. And then lastly, just wanted to remind everybody, upcoming is National Public Works Week. And this year's theme is advancing the quality of life for all. And so Public Works Week is May 19th through the 25th. But one of the things is, again, we want to encourage you to come to the Public Works Complex grand opening, which will be on May 18th. That will help us kick off this year's Public Works Week. And that is the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you, Delora.
Can I make a comment? I just heard you talk about why well, perhaps not all of why, but one of the reasons why we sweep the streets once a month is to help with the stormwater and the wastewater treatment. And having moved to Wilsonville from Portland, where I believe my street was swept once a year, I don't know, I just have always appreciated how clean the streets are, and didn't really realize there's many reasons behind it. But anyway, so thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
Are we still doing periodic testing of the wastewater for COVID?
Hazardous algal blooms?
No.
Yes, we get those reports weekly?
Yes, I'm sorry, for the...
They test for RSV,
Yeah,
COVID,
RSV and
flu.
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and some people here have probably been on the tour of the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant in Civics Academy.
Yes.
If you haven't, it's really fascinating. And I think one of the, maybe you can describe this better, the value we get from working with the contractor, Viola, with their various levels of capacity and expertise that you wouldn't find in most people you could hire for a city water treatment plant.
Right. Well, so for both water and wastewater, the value that we do come from having a third party is we're not that big of a city, and so exactly the depth of the bench of the knowledge. For both of those companies, they're large international firms, so if something comes up, they can just make a phone call or two and reach somebody. A great example was a couple years ago, we were having to take some of our biosolids to the landfill because the dryer was not working. And so as we were taking it, they had a hit on radiation. within our biosolids load. And we're all just like, well, what does that mean and where did it come from? And so Jacobs was able to reach out into their company, and there's actually a person who that is their area of expertise. And what we had determined is likely it was kind of a medical waste that somebody was going through treatment, but it was enough to trigger this. And so, you know, the solution was basically that we just held on to the biosolids until the half-life, which was like maybe 6 weeks, and it dissipated and we moved on. So that's one of the advantages of the knowledge base that they can reach out to. The other one is their buying power, and especially with Veolia, when we do our swap out of our granulated activated carbon, is that they're not just buying for Wilsonville. Like if I were to go out and solicit a bid to get granulated activated carbon, that would just be for Wilsonville. When they're buying for this huge, on behalf of this huge company. So the other companies who are selling this are looking to get more business with this bigger company than for a smaller agency. So,
thank you.
I have a few questions. For wastewater, would it be beneficial to do some sort of educational program to educate people on what they should and should not be flushing? Would that be beneficial to reducing how much work goes into treating that?
yes. And in fact, like at the annual block party that we have, is we have a booth and we try to explain to people about fats, oils, and grease, right? So you're better off to scrape it and throw it away than to put it down your pipes. Not only will it eventually hit us, but it could do damage to your pipes. Another one is the, though you can flush a wipe, does not mean that you should flush a wipe. And then, and/or my favorite one is the fact that how many people flush their dental floss, and then that creates a lot of havoc because in every lift station that we have, there's propeller pumps, and if you can imagine, you get these strings all wound up into the propeller, and it makes a mess. So we do try to reach out in various ways to the community to let them know.
Okay, and I was thinking, so I know there's the like recycling flyers that come out sometimes that say like what you should be recycling where. I don't know if something like that would be helpful.
It's something we work with, maybe with the utility billing.
Mm-hmm. Or Boone's Ferry Messenger.
Okay.
Maybe just have that as an annual request of the community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
There might be a project we could do with the schools one day, and I will say, Counselor or Member Akraval had to leave our meeting for a minute because she is attending from a hotel and they just lost power. I don't know if you can help with that, Delora. But I want to say that this was public knowledge a couple of years ago that on this subject that you just brought up of how to get the word out about what not to put down the toilet, Council President Akraval's elementary school daughter, maybe they were at home on a rainy day and she decided to get the whiteboard and a pointer and made a presentation about this. And then she decided to also use her Spanish class and made it in Spanish. And I think it really got a lot of publicity. And so that was kind of a really fun way. It was about the wipes, the non-flushable wipes, which we have learned from Delora are terrible. And they cost, not only do they hurt the system, they cost taxpayers money. It's just a product that isn't really helping because they're not really flushable.
And the companies like to market them as flushable.
Right.
Pharmaceuticals are another one that can be a problem as well.
So maybe we can have a marketing campaign contest.
I like the idea of working with schools. I think that's something we can pursue.
Maybe it's a community enhancement grant project somebody can apply for? Just suggesting. Okay, great idea, thanks.
One of my other questions was about the trip check cameras, the ones that are in Wilsonville. Is some of them, they'll show like image is not currently available. Is that something Wilsonville is responsible for? Is that the county, ODOT?
Well, most trip check ones are through ODOT, but in coordination with Clackamas County. So the cameras at intersections for signals, those are operated by Clackamas County, but those are really to give them a better idea if a intersection is getting too backed up, that they can adjust the signal timing. But the other ones that you see, like on Trip Check, those are ODOTs.
Okay, okay. And then I don't know if you'll know the answer to this question, but was Wilsonville or was it someone else that was responsible for the fixes between 2s and Baker Road between Wilsonville and Sherwood last year? Was that us? Or was that
Likely it would be Washington County.
Washington County?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Unless it went really well, then we'll take credit.
The feedback I heard was not really well.
Any other questions for Public Works?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Delora. Okay, the next slide that we're going to go through, can you guys hear me okay? Excellent. The next slides that we're going to go through are going to be the budget dollars. So after each of our department directors do their presentation as Dora did, doing their overview, then we're going to look at the how we move from fiscal year 23-24 amended budget to the 24-25 proposed budget. We're just going to be speaking to any of those significant changes. We're not going to go through necessarily all the changes. All the detail is outlined in your budget notebook. So just a couple notes here that are applicable to all departments. Personal services, there's a 10% budgeted increase for health insurance. And as you've heard reiterated throughout our presentation thus far, materials and services, there are several increases there, most notably with utilities and also liability insurance. Okay, so Public Works Administration, no large changes here. Overall, just an 8% increase from the prior year, which in part is attributable to the increase in utility services related to the new Public Works building. In total, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $1 million to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $1.1 million with no change in FTE. Yes.
So on that last slide, it looked like you had increase in utility services to the new Public Works complex. But I noticed when I took a tour that there's solar panels. And so the city may be getting some money back.
Delora, would you like to speak to this?
Did you hear me? I didn't.
Yes.
You might want to just stay in the front row.
So for those increased utilities, that's all utilities, right? There didn't used to be a building, now there's a building, so we have water, we have sewer, we have stormwater charges. But for the solar panels, is what happens is that the energy that we create flows back to the grid, and after 1 year, they will look at the overall, what is the amount that we are flowing back in kilowatts, and then they will start reducing our bills for the credit. So, but for the first year, we pay full freight, and then they calculate, and then we start getting credit, so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that, excuse me, is that by the building? Because we have solar panels.
So yes, so the particular one is the solar panels on our warehouse.
And you're able to isolate that back and the revenue back into
the grid.
Or does it go to the general fund?
It's tied to the meter for that building.
So the revenue coming back does not go to the general fund?
Isn't it just like a?
It would be a credit.
Yeah,
So if my bill was $10,000, I get a credit of I'm making these numbers up, but I get a credit of $2,000, so I'd only have to pay $8,000. So, but it would be specific back to the power bill for Public Works.
For that facility. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty generous.
Well, it's also a new requirement, so.
It is.
Yeah.
Any new building needs to invest 1.5% of its total cost back into green energy technology. So we chose to go with solar panels.
Any other questions? Okay, next, we will move into facilities. To keep up with demand in our growing city facilities, this includes, as Dora mentioned, an ad package for an additional janitor and coinciding vehicle, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $2 million and FTE of 11.75 to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $2.2 million and 12.75 FTE.
As we're going through these, if you have questions, don't feel shy. You can ask at any time.
Next is roads. This includes an ad package for an additional maintenance specialist and coinciding vehicle, split 60% to roads and 40% to stormwater. This also reflects an updated current year allocation of the maintenance lead, split as well between roads and stormwater, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $1.4 million and 4.2 FTE to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $1.3 million and 4.8 FTE. Next, street lighting. This work is contracted out to PGE. As such, there's no personal services line item. As Dora was mentioning earlier, we are able to see immediately the cost savings with our conversion to the energy efficient LED lights and anticipate to see about a 10% decrease in utility costs this coming year, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $366,000 to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $331,000. Next, water distribution. This includes an increase to professional and technical services, which is directly attributed to the rate increase of meter reading services. This next year, we'll be performing a study, as we mentioned earlier, surrounding AMI, which stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure, which would allow for automated meter reads. The proposed budget includes also the purchase of a small vacuum trailer, in total bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $1.7 million to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $1.8 million with no change in FTE. Water treatment plant is operated under contract with Veolia North America for the operations and maintenance of the water treatment plant. Those operating costs are adjusted each year per a combination of the Consumer Price Index and Employee Cost Index. As detailed on page 129 of your budget document, the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget includes increases for supplies and capital outlay to repair or replace various assets to ensure continuous operations and security of the water plant. In total, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $4.7 million to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $6.3 million. Next, wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant is operated under contract with Jacobs for the operations and maintenance of the wastewater treatment plant. Those operating costs are adjusted each year per a combination of the Consumer Price Index and Employee Cost Index, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $3.3 million to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $3.6. Wastewater collection and industrial pretreatment. No large changes here. Overall, a net 5% decrease in requirements for fiscal year 24-25, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $1.4 million to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of $1.3 million. No change in FTE. Last but not least, with Public Works, is stormwater maintenance. This includes an ad package for an additional maintenance specialist and coinciding vehicle, as we mentioned earlier, split 60% to roads and 40% to stormwater. This also reflects an updated allocation for an existing maintenance lead, split as well between roads and stormwater, bringing them from a fiscal year 23-24 amended budget of $1.2 million an FTE of 3.14 to a fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget of 1.3 million and 3.54 FTE. I know that was really quick. Wondering if we have any questions. If not, that will conclude the Public Works portion of our presentation tonight. If no questions, then I will turn it over to Keith.
And we will be switching gears to our transit budget, transportation, which encompasses SMART as well as fleet. And we have Transit Director, Mr. Dwight Brashear, to give a budget overview. And then we'll follow up similarly and go through the numbers.
All right, thank you, Keith. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dwight Brashear. I am the Transit Director for SMART, and we are one department, two disciplines, operations of the public transit conveyance and then fleet services as well. And I'm joined this evening by our fleet services manager, Scott Simonton, just in case you have any technical questions about engines and how they operate. We have electric buses as well. So if you want to know anything about that, Scott's your man. All right, we can go on to the... All right, some of the projects that we are currently undertaking, we just finished in late 2023 our Transit Master Plan update, which was adopted by the City Council. It is a 5 to 7 year look in the future and what transit should look like, we hope, with all of the other changes going on in the city with town center. We want to be an integral part of the development of Frog Pond and Basalt Creek, Coffee Creek, all of that. If there are people there, we want to be there as well. So with that in mind, we are working on our Clackamas Town Center service. We have 4 buses currently on order for that. We hope to have them mid to late summer. We're working with ODOT. This is our second project where we will be utilizing the shoulder of the interstate, I-205 in this case. We currently operate on I-5 between Ellickson and Tualatin. And we are the only transit agency in the state of Oregon that is allowed to use the shoulder of the interstate. So this is an exciting route for us. Once implemented, someone could reasonably expect to take a bus from the city of Wilsonville to Mount Hood with a couple of transfers. So we're excited about that. Another project that has been, in my mind, a long time in the making. I've been here since 2017 and had an idea that there was a vacant piece of land there at the transit center that we might be able to do something special with that particular parcel. And what we came up with together was a transit-oriented development project. So what that looks like is it's 5 stories. The first story is retail along with Wilsonville Community Sharing, which is a food bank. We will have, SMART will have a regional customer service center on that first floor as well. And then there will be 4 stories of affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. From what we understand, according to Senator Wyden, this hasn't been done before, where 100% of the building will be affordable housing. So we're excited about that, primarily for families, 2 and 3 bedroom units. So we're really, really looking forward to that. And I think what makes it special more than anything else is that besides providing an incredible place for folks to live, when they come out and they need to get around Wilsonville, we'll be there for them, and they can get pretty much anywhere for free. We don't charge a fare on our service with the exception of the 1X that goes to Salem. But even that is very reasonable at $1.60 for most of the folks in this room, except for myself. I think I'm a senior, so I get half off or something like that. Anyway, so that'll be an exciting project. We're expecting, if everything goes well, we're expecting to break ground. August 1st was the last date that I heard. Once we break ground, it's about 18 months to completion. And that'll be a jewel there at the Transit Center. And we don't have to add parking, so we're going to utilize the parking lot that is currently there. We have 399 spaces, many of which since COVID aren't being used. And so this was a good repurposing of some parking spaces there. Facility yards expansion, we are growing and we are going to continue to grow. If we follow the transit master plan, our service will about double. And so with that, we're going to need more space to park our vehicles. What we've done is in this plan, we've bifurcated the route. Half of the route will be dedicated to RNG, renewable natural gas. Vehicles, which we have been running, I think, since about 2010, 2011, successfully. The other section of the lot will be dedicated to electrification, electric vehicles. And so we're hoping, and our goal is to be totally alternative fuel by 2028. And if we're successful, we will be the first public transit agency in the state of Oregon to be completely alternative fuel. And so that is in the design stage at this point. And then we're excited to bring a battery electric trolley, which I believe will be the first in the state. We currently have a trolley that's model year 2000, and it's as old as me. That's a joke, folks. Anyway, so we're replacing that trolley with a brand new state-of-the-art battery electric trolley. It's an all-weather trolley. The current trolley is a fair weather trolley. On a day like this, it would be beautiful. But on the rainy days, which we have a few here in Oregon, it probably wouldn't work out real well. The monies, and we'll talk a little bit about that, the monies for the electric trolley are coming through the Volkswagen settlement. And so with that, we will have to destroy the old trolley. And we're working a deal with TVF&R, and they will use it for training some of their firefighters. And so it will find a good home moving forward. All right, so just kind of some of our funding. We receive a portion of the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, which is a 0.1% tax on employees. And so we're expecting about 2.2 million. I think we just got a disbursement today, Keith. I sent that over to you. So it's been really good for us. We've been able to leverage federal grants using those dollars. And so we look forward as employers start adding payroll, that will continue to increase. We are the second largest recipient of the STIF funds in the Tri-County area behind TriMet. The battery electric trolley, it shows a $449,500 grant. It was less than that, and when we found out that the trolley, because of COVID and supply chain and everything, they increased the price on us. And so we went back to the state and asked for an amended grant, and they actually gave it to us. I was very pleased and very surprised that they granted that to us. So it's going to take $150,000 of local match, which in the grand scheme of things, when you think about the cost of a bus now, electric bus can cost about $1 million, just a single bus. And we generally pay about 20% of that, sometimes 15% if the federal government is feeling generous. And so it's a really good deal. And a bus is a 12-year, 500,000 mile, whichever comes first, and then the federal government will replace it again. So pretty good. And we're showing about $408,000 for vehicle replacement, primarily cutaways, which are the smaller vehicles that we use. Those are built on a Ford chassis. Those are RNG, renewable natural gas, and they are a workhorse for us. And I ride one every day between Wilsonville and Canby, and enjoy it very much. So the facility expansion that I talked to you about, we're looking to use about $1 million of STIF money, which is the State Transportation Improvement Fund, which was on the top line there, and then a local match of about $4 million. So I think that turns it over to you, I think, Keith.
Yeah.
All right.
You can talk about the hard numbers.
I have no answers, but you can ask.
I don't have questions necessarily. I just wanted to say that I noticed the new kind of electric signs at the bus stops. Those are really nice. I like those. And then in the budget documents, it mentioned that 2023 was the last year for purchase of petroleum-based diesel, I think it said, and everything's onto more renewable sources, so congratulations on that. It's a big one. I'd like to hear it.
Yes, thank you. I like those kind of questions. Any more of those?
Could I also ask, so that the affordable housing, could you provide a little more detail on what the timeline generally is looking like for that to happen?
Yeah, and Amanda can help with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. Amanda Geil-Hinman, City Attorney. We are planning to take to council at our next council meeting the development agreement for the project. Right now, it's anticipated that construction will begin probably in August, and we are expecting it to be completed by April of 2026.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit how the city can run a free bus service? I mean, that's not common, right?
That's a secret.
I mean, isn't that the Wilsonville way?
It's the Wilsonville way, yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things behind that. I've worked, I haven't been able to keep a job. Over the past 39 years, I've worked in a lot of cities, most of them very, very large, and most of them struggled financially. And when I arrived here, I saw something different that I didn't see in Washington, D.C., that I didn't see in New Orleans or Los Angeles or San Diego or Las Vegas or Fresno or some of the other places that I had been. And I saw an opportunity to run a service that was very, very good, and also provide that service to people that need it most of all. I worked in New Orleans. Some of you may know my story. And we failed a lot of people in New Orleans during Katrina. We left them stranded because they were transit dependent. And I never want to see that happen again. And so the team and I, we put our heads together and we said, we believe we can run a free service. Some of it was already free, but we wanted to make the whole thing free because I told Brian, and I've told Gina, who is my supervisor, I said, there's nothing more equitable than free. You can't argue that. It's the most equitable thing you can do for people. And so we set out to run a fiscally responsible operation, which we do. We are one of two operations in the state that operates in the black, and we do it very proudly. Keith didn't announce, but I think we're probably the healthiest fund, one of.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't want to talk about it.
From being on the watch list every year. I mean, we receive funding from our employers, and the STIF money helped a great deal in that regard, but offering that free transit service is unique to Wilsonville, I would say. And I think we've even tried to get the 1X to be free, but we have a partner on the other end that can't quite accommodate that yet, but maybe we'll get there at some point.
But they cut the fare in half, and so that helped our customers considerably. But, we were compared in a meeting to other transit agencies, and the experts in the room aren't transit experts, but they call themselves transportation experts, which is different, I think. Couldn't figure out how we could do what we do without charging a fare and operate in the black. And other transit agencies charge a lot of money. Sometimes you'll pay $2.50, $3, to ride a bus, and they still run a deficit. And, it's a secret. Like I said, we believe in what we do. We love what we do. We believe that especially when it comes to the stiff portion of it, the 0.1%, which is paid by employees, we believe the employees have already paid the fare. Every time they get paid, there is money coming out of their paychecks. And so I didn't want to double down on that and charge them again. And so we offer it at no charge to them. We offer free Wi-Fi on all of our buses. As you mentioned, Cynthia, we have the electronic readers at our bus stops tells you what time the next bus will be there. We have our own app. So if you want to jump on the smart app, you can do that. The things that we do, and I've said this pretty much since I've been here, the things that we do, we shouldn't be able to do because we're a small agency. But we are the envy of the Tri-County. People look to us, Westland and Hillsborough. I've met with all of the folks there, and they would like to do what we do here in Wilsonville with our transit system, because they all have parks, and they have beautiful parks. They have public works, and I learned a lot from Delora. I am not going to brush my teeth or floss anymore. I had no idea that I was causing such problems in the system. You've heard it here tonight. So.
One other thing about transit I would say is they're really good at getting federal grants. So the team there at SMART is really good. And with that, we get audited every 3 years by the Federal Transit Administration comes on site and puts us through a rigorous financial and compliance audit. And
we were just audited 3 weeks ago, something like that.
But what the previous audit, how did that one turn out?
Well, that one was flawless, and I had never in 30 some odd years of doing this had a perfect audit from the federal government, because their job is to find something, right? And they just left here 3 weeks ago, and I think we had 3 minor, like we forgot to check a box, we forgot to put the word "the" in a contract. It was really minor, and so though it wasn't the perfect audit of 3 years ago, I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. So again, we're not supposed to be able to do what we do, but we do it, and we do it proudly. And we are one of the top 10 transit agencies in the country by survey. They do a national survey, and we have finished in the top 10 the 7 years that I've been here. And that no other transit agency in the state of Oregon can boast that. So, yeah, you guys have done an incredible job.
And just to tag along, where you say, it's free and free is equitable, but what's really nice is that the buses are really clean and well maintained. They're something that vehicles that people would want to be riding in.
Right.
And thank you for your good work.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I believe that's important. When you keep the buses clean, it shows that we care about the customers, we care about the equipment. And it's easy if you get on something that's falling apart to help it fall apart. But if you get on something that looks really good and feels really good, yeah, and our customers are absolutely the best. The free fare, or the no fares. The one point that I wanted to make was there's a big thing going on in the state because bus drivers are being assaulted, harassed, and we don't have that. And I knock on wood. And I believe one of the primary reasons for that, not only do we have good customers, great drivers, but there's no fare to fight over. drivers in my years of doing this have had to battle customers over a dime. The driver will say, the fare is, 35 cents, and you only put in 25 cents. I need another dime. I don't have a dime. I need a dime. You can't ride unless you have a dime. And then a fight ensues. And I've watched this over my career. We don't have that problem here. Everybody rides, and it's the same cost, whether you make $200,000 a year or you're on a fixed income. Matters not to us. The fare is the same. So.
And isn't it true, that there is also a cost to collecting and reporting on the fares?
Oh, money is dirty too. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And one point you made about our employers. So throughout the, TriMet area and beyond, an employer is expected to pay a fee for transit.
Yes.
And so what is often missed is that, or, it's just not obvious to people, but maybe you could just talk about the other nice benefit to our employers about the fee they have the opportunity. They do have to pay it, but what's the best thing about it?
Well, I think the best thing about it is obviously they're getting their money's worth for it, but also our payroll tax is 0.5%. And it's been 0.5% since about, we raised it in 2008 to help TriMet pay for the West train. We are the lowest in the Tri-County area of those that collect payroll tax. We're lower than Canby and Sandy and some of the other providers. And of course, TriMet is approaching 1% on there, and theirs goes up every year. So I think, the best thing that we can tell our employers is that they're getting a top quality service for their money. And we are very nimble. And if an employer calls us, I think we were involved in the what's the name of the company, Mayor?
Precision Countertops.
There you go. And so we ran a shuttle to help with groundbreaking. Yes. And so we're able to do those kind of things. And we're part of the community. We're part of this fabric. And you don't see that in transit agencies. And so it is, I say it's a secret, but it's very special.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mayor. And the mayor and I will be in Washington, D.C. Next week. As Keith mentioned, we do pretty good at getting federal dollars back here to Wilsonville, so we'll be there talking to all of our congressional delegation. Looking forward to that.
And just a note for maybe some of the new members that don't know, if SMART didn't exist, we would be part of TriMet, and our employers would be paying the TriMet payroll tax. So from an economic development standpoint, that helps us a lot as well.
Yeah. There's no getting around it. I know there are some people that have said, wow, SMART, we don't need SMART. And that's fine. I mean, I hate to see that happen, but TriMet would take over by law. You cannot not have a transit agency unless you change the law. So.
Well, I think one of the great benefits of SMART is, or any transit agency, is it is there to take cars off the road, give people access, make people feel comfortable riding it, dependable. And so it has to be, to get new riders, it has to be an appealing, dependable, convenient, trusted service. And so this is one of them that does help bring in new riders.
Yes, absolutely.
And Dwight talked about the ability to be nimble. When we had COVID, we had to figure out a way to get our Meals on Wheels program to keep that running to our vulnerable population. Dwight and his team stepped up, worked with the community center to use our drivers to hand deliver those meals to those customers that relied on those meals. So there's a lot of benefit to having our own transit agency.
Yeah, and we did grocery runs as well during that period. And, the no fare thing, we really, I'd love to underscore that. Metro did a study, and they said during COVID, SMART did better than any other transit agency because we don't charge fares. those that were dependent upon fares, and we saw a ridership drop off by close to 50%, those that were dependent on fares as part of their revenue suffered mightily.
Okay.
And we just kept plugging along because, you know, fares weren't, we weren't
Part of the equation.
dependent on fares, yeah, so, anyway. Fun stuff. I love transit, so I can go all night, but I'm sure you have other stuff to talk about. So.
Yeah, don't go away. We'll go over the numbers here. Cynthia, did you have a number?
I better sit down.
Yeah, I had a couple questions.
Oh, sure. All right.
He likes your question.
Yeah, her questions are, my wife's name is Cynthia, by the way,
It's a great name.
and she spells it with an S.
Oh, I love that.
So-
I love to hear it.
There you go. I thought she was just making it up. Now I see it's a real, I'll tell her.
Yeah,
It's a real name. Okay.
it is a real name.
Okay.
For the services that are provided for Coffee Creek individuals that are being released, are those also provided free of charge, or do we get reimbursement from Department of Corrections?
They're free of charge, and we have a hotline, or they have a hotline to us, and so we generally find out, they'll give us a list of folks that are being released, when they're being released, and we try to be there when that person is being released.
Dwight, maybe you could add a little color about whether or not that area is something that we are obligated to serve or not.
Well, no, that's TriMet's service area, and TriMet doesn't service that area. And so, because TriMet doesn't service it, we do. But here's the kicker. TriMet collects the revenue in that area. So you go figure that. And we still operate in the black. So it's just.
And I think we will be talking about that subject later, because a question, Council President Ockervall came back on, the power's back. But we will later be talking about why we didn't have to spend that fund that we allocated last year.
Yes. Yeah.
But we won't go into that now.
No.
And I will say it's a perennial, very long-running struggle that I and many others believe in, that there is a day where SMART will be able to collect the transit fee in that area, because it's the right thing to do. And it's been a complicated struggle, and we're sticking with it.
Yeah. It's since 2017 for me, and longer for Brian and some of the other folks, but TriMet knows my name, so they know who I am. Yeah, they know who I am.
But it's the right thing to do to provide that transit.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a TriMet service area. It seemed so seamless with SMART, so.
Yeah, we use that area to transfer, like TriMet will bring people to us, but they generally, then they scurry off wherever they go. So anyway.
The other question I had, the audits that you mentioned from the Federal Transportation Authority, are those available online somewhere?
They will be, and the mayor is the primary point of contact, so they will send her all of the documents once we're in the process of, I think in the next week or two, they will send us an official document that says, we were there, these are the 3 areas that we found deficiencies in. But believe it or not, we've already responded to those. We've sent them the response already. So when the mayor gets the letter, it'll say, these were the deficiencies and they've been corrected, because we've already corrected them.
But it is something you could post to the SMART website.
Oh, we could, yes, absolutely.
And the previous one where you were perfect.
Oh, yes, yeah, I would love to. I would love to do that. Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, don't ask me to post the one before that, but anyway, yeah.
So we can go over the numbers real quick with Dwight up here. It goes from, it has a current budget of $10.4 million, and we moved to a requested budget of $10.5 million, of which $5.6 million is the personnel service budget, $2.9 is their materials and service budget, and $2 million is their capital outlay budget. This department kind of ebbs and flows a little bit with grant funding. To the extent that they don't get grant funding for a certain item, the budget will decrease. They never spend, outside of any kind of grant funding that they get. And you'll see the largest decrease in the one-time year professional and technical services is the largest delta in this budget. And that was just from the previous year, or this current year that we're in, we had some grant funding available for route modeling and the yard expansion design that is done and no longer needed for the upcoming budget, so it gets taken off. And then there's incremental increases in the salary and the regular salary and benefit, and then they have the additional transit driver request for the service to Clackamas, and then that'll be grant funded as well. So, and then they have an additional $2 million of, or $1.6 million of capital outlay, which are the buses.
Keith, and when you talk about the grants, I just think it's important to know most of the grants are competitive in nature, so you have to put together a really good, compelling argument for them. And so we're not applying for them and not getting them. We apply for them strategically, so we're not applying for every grant. So I don't want folks to think we're losing, because we're not losers. We don't lose. When we apply, we generally win. So. Because we have an incredible story to tell.
This is the last remaining department that falls under the umbrella of transit, mostly because transit is the largest user of fleet services. I think it's about 80% of the fleet service usage. But fleet services here also services all the vehicles in the city, as well as all the equipment. Parks and Recreation, all their lawnmowers, their, all that kind of equipment flows through our fleet department. So there's really just a small change from a $2 million budget to a $2.1 million for the next year. And how it's called an internal service fund or department. The budget, this $2.1 million budget, is charged out to every other department based on their vehicle usage. So the water department has, a handful of vehicles. They get a prorated portion of this budget that they're responsible for. Same with the sewer department. As I mentioned, it's transit. It's about 80% that they're responsible for of this budget. And Scott Simonton, our fleet manager, does an excellent job of upgrading and updating and rotating the vehicles as needed and putting them up for auction when it's most appropriate to get the biggest return on investment for those vehicles. We generally tend to keep vehicles, and he can come up in, if I'm misspoken, about 10 years, and we're saving each one of those years to replace that vehicle as they get subject to replacement. So,
Keith, can I give Scott a shout out? You said 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scott recently auctioned off a 25-year old vehicle. And Scott, what did you get for that?
Back?
Yeah.
I think it was $65,000.
We got $65,000 for a Vector truck that we paid how much for 25 years ago? Well, you weren't.
I wasn't even here.
Yeah. So this is the kind of return the city is getting on its surplus vehicles. So that is incredible to me, to sell a vehicle for $65,000 that's 25 years old, that we probably paid $150,000 for 25 years ago. So.
And if you take Civics Academy, which the 10th anniversary is this fall, you get to tour the Smart Transit Center. It's very interesting.
We love tours.
So I have a question about the fleet services and the charges. Sure. So since the maintenance is done across the entire city and spread out in budget based on the number of vehicles that they have, some of the repairs may be different for different vehicles. So is that charged back to that department separately?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little more, of course, with finance, we like to make things as complicated as possible. So the allocation out to the departments is not specifically on the number of vehicles. They also have a work order system where they're tracking the time and the parts for each vehicle, and those vehicles are assigned to a department. So We do a 3-year rolling average of their work order history, so the departments don't get hit. So, it doesn't vary so much. So we do a kind of a rolling average based on those work order histories, as well as fuel usage gets parlayed into that a little bit too. So yeah, it gets charged out equitably and most precisely and perfectly as we can to each department based on number of vehicles, their work order history, fuel usage,
And I think, Councilor Linville, it's important to know that every piece of equipment that we buy has a warranty. And so Scott and his team track that. And so whether it's a bus or a lawnmower or a Vector truck, if it's under warranty, then the company that we bought it from will either come out and service it. Usually they'll have us service it and just pay us to do the warranty work on it. But we track that very, very closely. So, yeah. Not a dime slips through there without
I'm sure not.
scrutiny.
I think that is the wrap for today. We adjourn until May 15th, which is that next Wednesday? Wednesday. Same time, same place. And next week we go into community development, parks and recreation, library, as well as administration. Yeah, administration as well as police and law enforcement as well too. So
None of which will be as exciting as transit and fleet.
in a different way, they're exciting.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you.
I believe we've covered all the questions and comments. I did want to mention there was the public comment submitted prior. It's related to Parks and Rec, who I think are presenting next week. Can I read it next week?
And I will note, for the record, just so you know, I have been involved in those conversations, so there is more to it than what you have there. So I'll have Chris Ammerman, the Parks Director, address that issue specifically.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to continue the public hearing regarding the City of Wilsonville fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 15th, 2024?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion to continue the public hearing to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 has been moved by Member Tyler and seconded by Member Barry. Any discussion? All those in favor state aye.
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 Those opposed state nay.
Councilor Ackerval has a raised hand.
I was just trying to say aye. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been a mess tonight, but I will see you all in person next week. It'll go easier.
Any abstentions?
Chair, I wanted to let you know that member Tabby had to be excused due to a sick child, so your total will not include her for this vote.
Result of the vote passes
8-0.
The hearing will be continued to...
Because Councilor Ackerval's in the meeting.
8.
Oh, okay. The hearing will be continued to 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, and the record for public testimony will be kept open. Having no further business on the agenda, I adjourn the City of Wilsonville Budget Committee meeting at 8:38.
And your gavel.
You can hit.
Well done.